G'day everyone, this is the Rullywow King Tut based on the Black Arts Pharoah. It's a silicon fuzz. Something I don't usually do in the sound demo is to look at the schematic. I'm just going to have a brief look at what it's got to offer. As I've said in other videos, the electronics engineering side of this is not my forte, so I hope I'm not feeding you incorrect information, but it's just going to be a basic look at it anyway. Just so it does help if you're new to pedals to just have a look at the schematic, even if you don't, you usually kind of avoid it and just assemble it. You know, like paint by numbers, insert this here, insert that there, and see what comes out the other end. If you have a look at the schematic and just have a basic sort of overview of what the controls are doing, it can give you more of an understanding of how the pedal actually works. So Ben comments on this clipping control saying that it's in the build doc, saying it's very loud when it's in the middle position. And see if I can get a bit close. It's very bad print off. Hopefully you can sort of make out what's going on here. So it's an on-off switch. When it's in the off position, meaning those two poles are disconnected, they're not touching anything. This pretty much entire, well, not this resistor up here, but this clipping section is disconnected from the circuit. So that's the reason why it's so loud, because when you don't have those diodes in the circuit, you're going to get a lot more volume on the output. And you can also see that one of them has 2 diodes, the other one has 3, so the volume difference between those two. And when you flick that clipping switch, you'll notice that it makes a huge volume. There's a volume difference between all 3 settings, particularly the middle one, which is almost deafening. It's incredibly loud, and that's what Ben says in the build doc. But it's a way to bypass clipping altogether, which is desirable for some people, because you get just the natural fuzz from the gain stages along here, and you just totally bypass that clipping section pretty much. So just a few other things that I can comment. I feel mildly qualified to comment on is the input. You've got a switch on the input as well, and you've got 39K and 390K. I think I'm having trouble reading it through the camera here, but there's a big difference between the two. I'm pretty sure I was right with that, and it'll just cut off it's like a tone control pretty much, and it'll just cut your highs off when it's on the higher setting. You know, you can just sort of picture that the treble has more trouble getting through a 390K resistor than it does with a 39K resistor, and that's why some of the treble gets cut off, and I'll demonstrate that in the sound demo as well. And then down the other end, you've just got a standard volume control on the output. I've made videos about that and commented. It's pretty easy to understand how that volume control works, but I won't go into it in this video because it requires a bit of an explanation. But just search on my channel if you want to see how a volume control on a guitar pedal works. I think the name of the video is. And then you've got quite a complicated tone control down the bottom here. You've got the higher setting down the bottom there with the potentiometer, and a tone control setting there. I could probably sit down and try and understand how that works, but it just looks like a sort of a complicated way of, you know, cutting off highs down the bottom here, sending highs to ground, and then some other sort of standard sort of tone control. You just picture this wiper. Whenever you're trying to think of how a potentiometer works, just picture this wiper. What this wiper is doing when it's up, and what this wiper is doing when it's down, to get an idea of what's happening. Obviously, when it's down, the signal has to go through the entire value of the resistor, so there's more resistance, and generally things get sort of cut off usually when that sort of works. But anyway, I thought there's something a bit different. We'd have a quick look at the schematic on this one. I got a feeling you guys will dig that introductory overview of the schematic, because when we look at these things, it helps us understand actually what's going on when we're using the pedal as well. So that'll obviously translate into the following sound demo, which we'll take a look at now. I should say too, just before we start, I'm going to be mucking around with that volume control a lot because of the reasons I just said. There's a lot of volume manipulating settings on this pedal, so you have to compensate with the volume control. And also, massive noob mistake here. I actually put volume and distortion, and I'm fairly certain tone and high, it's all back to front. So this is distortion, this is volume. That's why volume's up full, distortion's on minimum. It's actually the other way around. That's volume and distortion's up full. Yeah, so that was a bit of a noob mistake. I haven't done that one for a while. Anyway, let's get into the sound demo now. does a brief look at the King Tut. As you can see, there's lots of different settings. On this one you can do lots of different combinations, and actually don't you love it when you contradict yourself? That low-high switch was actually quite good on the setting where the clipping stage is actually bypassing the diodes. It actually did have a pretty good effect. I actually found it better on low. That was the only setting I found it was actually very useful for, and you could actually change that for a potentiometer so that you can adjust it to taste as opposed to just being on and off, because it's quite a drastic difference. Actually reminds me of my Face Master when the input tone control is on maximum and minimum. It actually works pretty much the same, except I'm using a potentiometer whereas they're using a switch. So anyway, that's a look at the King Tut. Got into a bit more of a technical details, because I figure that a lot of people who watch my channel are into these sorts of details. So I'm going to try and implement a few little details on the actual how the actual pedal works and things like that with each of the sound demos, hopefully, or maybe the build reports. But this is the first one that I sort of came up with the idea. I get a lot of requests for this sort of information. Obviously, because we build pedals, that's part of building pedals. So if there's things that I feel confident about talking about, then I'll put them on. But I'm not going to be getting heavily into the technical side of things, because, like I said at the start of the video, I'm not an electronics engineer. That is definitely not my strength. I have strength in other areas as far as pedal building goes. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, subscribing, and all that. And stay tuned for more pedal demos. I've got about 10 pedals on my shelf right now that need to be demoed, so there's plenty more to come. Thanks for watching. Kind of looks a bit evil, doesn't it, really?